Don't forget to thank Final Fantasy XIII for creating the Stagger System. Well, it didn't necessarily create the Stagger System because Stagger and Stun systems existed way back, like in Street Fighter. Hell, even games like Xenosaga and Manakemia were doing their own version of the Stagger System before Final Fantasy XIII. But FF13 was the game that took this system, enhanced it, and modernized it for a more modern audience. For those who don't know what the Stagger System is, it's essentially a system in which you are hitting an enemy so much that eventually it becomes stunned and you're able to do big damage during its stunned state. And in Final Fantasy XIII, there was this huge meter called the Stagger meter that you as the player can manipulate. And this Stagger meter would be affected by things such as elemental weaknesses, debuffs, poison. And once that meter is full, you have free reign over this enemy. You can launch them into the air, slam them back down to the ground. You could do whatever you want to these enemies during this stun state, and you would get big damage. And since Final Fantasy XIII, other games following have also had some form of the Stagger system. Final Fantasy VII Remake has its own version of the Stagger system, but it involves this new system called Pressure, where once you expose an enemy's weakness or hit them in a vital spot, they are then susceptible to bigger stagger damage bonuses, which you would then go into doing your big damage. But in Final Fantasy XIII and Final Fantasy VII, what's really key here is that you don't just have to exploit the stagger gauge to do big damage. Final Fantasy VII Remake series offers you plenty of hard-hitting moves without that stagger. And Final Fantasy XIII's paradigm system allows you to respond instantly to several different types of situations and setups that you want to do when you don't want to just build up stagger the entire time. But we also have Final Fantasy XVI, who has their own version of the stagger system, and this stagger system feels a lot more like you're building up to that stagger so that you could do a huge damage rotation, and essentially it's rinse and repeat in that form. Build up stagger, do a big move. And regardless of how you feel about the stagger system as a whole, I do think there being another system for players to interact with enemies aside from just hitting them until they die is fascinating. Shout out to Yuji Abe and Toshiro Tsuchida for refining what could be considered one of the best new mechanics in RPGs.